All right, so Dida, Lama, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to express our sincere gratitude for the invite to take part in this meeting of the Celtic Nation Kernow here in Cornwall, a land that understands very well the struggle to reclaim a Celtic identity in a complex historical and cultural context. So, my name is Sergio Fernández Redondo, as I mentioned before, and I am here representing an inter-Celtic association called the Celtic League of Asturias, or Lliga Celta de Asturias in our vernacular. Now, you might be somewhat puzzled by that, as this is not one of the 6 Celtic nations that are traditionally recognized in these circles. So allow me to make a short introduction about our land and the organization that I represent. And Asturias is a region of Spain. It's situated in the northwest along the Atlantic Ocean. It is a wild and mountainous region covered in lush forests and vegetation and possessing an oceanic climate, not too different from that of the British Isles. Like all regions in Spain, it possesses a certain degree of autonomy, having its own regional parliament. But what will be of more interest to us today is its millenary culture rooted in Celtic heritage. Now, our association, the Celtic League of Asturias, was founded in 1981 with the intention of promoting Asturian Celtic culture and to collaborate with other Celtic organizations internationally, like yours. Our activities include academic research, which is compiled in our journal Esto, and we also organize cultural events for both for members and for the public and for schools, such as visits to archaeological sites, exhibitions, conferences, historical recreation, etc. Well, in general, anything related to promotion of our Celtic culture. I mean, I remember some years ago, some members that have an interest in martial arts, they did some research to revive on an ancient, wrestling method, anyway, and I've been trying to reintroduce it. So we have our fingers in many pies. So that is Asturias and the Celtic League. So I have to say that it is a great honor for Asturias to be here today, and also a responsibility. And as a representative of the Celtic League of Asturias, I bring a clear message on their behalf. And that is, the vindication of Asturias as a Celtic nation is not a win. It is a historical, cultural, and moral duty for our people. Doing a bit of history, there was some debate in the 1980s about the inclusion of Asturias and Galicia in the International Celtic League, both regions of northwestern Spain. And whilst most members of the International Celtic League agreed to it and acknowledged our Celtic cultural heritage, some members argued against it on account of its lack of a living Celtic language. And that view became prevalent since then. And it's true that Asturias lost its ancestral Celtic tongue, as did most of Celtic Europe. We can see the development in that map. Our indigenous Celtic tongue was gradually replaced by Latin after the Roman conquest of Hispania. And now we speak a Romance language derived from Latin. But loss of a tongue, which can happen for various reasons and historical dynamics, does not entail loss of a complete cultural identity. People is its tongue, yes, but also its memory, its symbols, its beliefs, its rituals, its myths, its land and the way of interacting with it, and so on and so forth. And in that sense, Asturias continues manifesting a cultural continuity with the Celtic world, which is clearly identifiable. So, if I may, I'm going to show a very, very brief summary of some clear Celtic elements still present in our culture. Ancient mythology, for instance, is littered with Celtic elements. The Shannons, female water spirits, would sometimes exchange their children with those of mortal people. You can see a parallelism with the She and the changelings, the fairies. The Nuberos, mighty creatures that control the storms and the weather. Their attributes are very similar to that of the Celtic god Taranis. The Cuélebres, winged serpents, regard the treasures in mountain caves. This motif goes beyond Celtic. This is a very, very ancient and typical Indo-European motif. La Vieja, who is an old woman, a crone inhabiting the mountains with power over the atmospheric weather and the storms. Maggie will recognize the Scottish Cailleach over there, very similar to it. Our devotion for water sources and trees. We have multiple holy springs or streams, much like in I reside in Ireland myself, and there's plenty of holy wells here. And in Asturias, it's also common to find ancient yews, which are holy trees outside rural churches, and house for the spirits, natural and rural spirits, etc. They all have evident parallels in Ireland, Isle of Man, Scotland, Cornwall, Brittany, or Galicia. And they are not coincidences. They are remains and vestiges. The castros, the ancient pre-Roman settlements, the castros of Asturias and their material culture are part of an Atlantic pattern which is found in a continuum all the way from Portugal to Scotland. Our population division in Asturias by valleys, clans, and the importance of communities in Asturian traditional life reflect a social system of Celtic tradition. Even our current administrative division in councils and parishes, which only occurs in the northwest of Spain, speaks an archaic form of organization based in the Castro age. Traditional iron walking is an example of a technical continuity inherited from ancient Celtic traditions. Likewise with wicker and basket making, wood carving, tanning and leather crafting, and other traditional trades passed down the centuries without interruption. Not to mention music, not only because of the bagpipes and folk tradition, but the ancient Celtic footprint is especially present in dances and singing. Our traditional singing style, for instance, the tonada, bears a striking resemblance to the Irish sean-nós, for instance, if someone here is familiar with it. Symbols, triskelia, spirals, solar wheels, swastikas, Celtic knotwork, and hexafoil or six-petal rosettes are still present in granaries that we call orreos, in wooden clocks that we call madreñas, shrines, churches and religious buildings, handicraft, and in popular architecture. And in Asturias, we have not, recovered those symbols. We have preserved them to the millennia. And this is the most controversial issue, our Celtic language, and the main criterion that some people based Celticity on. The Asturian territory was Celtic speaking. Linguists believe that our language was Q-Celtic, and therefore related to other ancient continental Celtic tongues and Goidelic, which is the current Irish, Manx, and Scottish Gaelic. And although no longer spoken, its legacy is still present. For instance, in toponymy and hydronymy, numerous rivers, mountains, and place names maintain their Proto-Celtic roots. Asturian language, albeit a Romance language, still contains some Celtic vocabulary from its indigenous substrate, especially in terms related to agriculture, livestock, and the land. For instance, it's not a minor detail that the very name Asturias derives from the Celtic root stur, meaning river or stream. I believe that in England we also have a number of rivers with the same roots called Stour or Stour, depending on the area. Now, I included in the slides some examples of very revealing place names in Asturias, which I took directly from Google Maps. So yeah, they are for everyone to see. And just while preparing the presentation, I realized that thanks to Google Maps providing real-time meteorological information, in addition to the names, you can also get a glimpse of what our climate is like rain, snow. So that's Asturias. So if the language disappeared, its foundations are still entrenched in our land and identity. So to sum up, the message that the Celtic League of Asturias wishes to convey here today is the following. So Asturias is not, let's say, asking to be allowed to be Celtic. Asturias is Celtic. What we seek is a change of paradigm and viewpoint. Celtic identity is complex. It includes language, indeed, but it also comprises of mythology, art, music, territorial organization, spirituality, historical memory, cosmovision, etc. Restraining Celticity solely to the linguistic factor is too limiting, unfair, and excludes peoples which have suffered abandonment, neglect, prohibition, or traumatic breakups. Cornwall is certainly aware of this, or the Isle of Man. So Celtic culture is not a static museum. It's a living being, diverse, dynamic, and deeply human. And that is why we are here today, to build bridges, to acknowledge one another mutually, and to remember that what unites us is deeper than any political boundary. We're united by the Atlantic tides. We're united by the foundational myths, the ritual relationship with nature, the music of ancestral memory, ironwork and craftsmanship, symbols, the spirituality of the landscape, and so on and so forth. Asturias is a Celtic people because it maintains the soul of Celtic culture alive. And we do it with pride, responsibility, and a profound feeling of belonging to this great Celtic Atlantic family. The chairman, Mr. Shepard, mentioned in his email and previously the work of John Cohan, Barry Cunliffe. So, as you know, in their book, Celts from the West, they defy the traditional theory that posits Celtic origin in Middle Europe, the so-called Hallstatt-Latene model, and instead they claim that the Iberian Peninsula is the origin of Celtic culture in Europe. So perhaps we Celts from Iberia still have an important part to play in the wider Celtic world. Thank you very much for your attention. Mir raz Tapalith. That's right. I don't know if we have time for questions or. No, that was